Hi there. Um, I realize that it is thoroughly contradictory to speak of violence as a tonic. Therefore, I will not speak of violence itself as a tonic, but I want to speak very differently. The difference is subtle, but it is substantive. I want to speak about the awareness of violence as a tonic. And please excuse me if I still seem to have a bit of a cold. I caught it from my husband. He loaned it to me. So if I sound a little bit nasal, then it's his fault, not mine. But let me get back to my point about violence. And I think a lot of people that read Nietzsche superficially seem to imagine that he thought that violence itself was somehow a good thing, somehow the way that strong people express themselves. But I have a more subtle intellectual interpretation that is based on my own life experiences. And according to me, and indeed from what I have gleaned from certain other academic texts and literary texts, violence in itself is not so good. Violence can actually blunt your sensitivities. It can actually make you less aware of your surroundings. So violence itself is not a good thing. People end up in psychiatric wards because of violence inflicted on them. Violence is not good, but the awareness of violence is actually a tonic. Let that sink in. To be aware of the absolutely intricate weaving of violence throughout the human situation, throughout history, throughout your own circumstances, to understand that interwoven layer of violence is actually an inextricable, necessary, irremovable, fundamental part of life. To understand that, and then to be able to have the courage to embrace that as part of life, that is a tonic. And I think that those cultures that can embrace that reality, and I hesitate to say and hasten to add, because I'm a little bit contradictory myself, that Rhodesia was an example of that ability to consciously understand violence and to embrace it. And I'm not talking about the morality or the ethics of that particular embrace of colonial violence, but I'm talking about the tonic impact that had on the psychology. So please keep those two things separate. I know it's very, very difficult, and I know that I seem to be in an area of, not even great controversy, but having gone a little bit beyond the pale. But this is intellectual rigor. This is not intended to confuse you, but to suggest that sometimes even the situations themselves can be contradictory. There can be a contradiction between the ethics of a situation and the tonic psychological effects of a situation. And that's just how it is. As intellectuals, as people who analyze, as people who would like to employ a scientific perspective, we should accept that sometimes life doesn't present us with a very palatable set of data. There's no intrinsic kind of essence of life that would make it have to come up with something that everything has to be aligned. Your ethics are good, your politics is good, your psychology is good. All these things are kind of simultaneously beneficial according to one single principle. There are actually numerous principles in life, and some of them flow one way while others flow the other way. So the ethics of Rhodesia was, I would say, tending to the negative. Okay, I'm being a bit subtle there. Others will say it was radically bad. But on the other hand, the tonic effect of realizing that violence was an intricate part of existence, much as the pioneers also accepted that principle. Well, that was actually a tonic. That was a benefit to people, to some people, of course, more than others, but it was a benefit. I think it was even a benefit to the African writer Dambudzo Marichira. He himself being black and not at all white, he still had that sense of the tonic effect of violence, and at the same time, paradoxically and contradictorily, being the recipient of extreme violence, and we don't want to minimize that. We would say that the ethics of his circumstances were very negative and very much to be lamented. But at the same time, it seems to me his ability to come to terms with the reality of violence and to write in terms of his understanding is in fact the fundamental thing that made him a good writer, made him not even just a good writer, but a superlative one, because he could do that. He had that within him to do that. So I don't want to confuse you. I don't want to make you feel like things are not under your control, but in fact, it is good to realize the contradictory principles at work very often. That there are already contradictory principles at work, and that there can often be a contradiction between ethics and psychology, between the ethics of a country or a culture and the good psychological outcome in many respects, and of course for certain types of people. So I'm really interested in extending this talk and talking a bit more about how this impacts on gender relations and feminism, and how I think if women can actually come to terms with this violent thread throughout the fabric of society, they do become a little bit more lively, much more vitalized, more sexual, controversially enough. It can actually be a great tonic for women to be able to understand and appreciate that violence is part of who we are. But I will actually make that into another episode later, so I can upload a very nice, neat, short video in this particular instance. And I hope that if you have any questions, you will address them to me and not go frantic and tear off your skin and become kind of like this raving zombie roaming through the land, skinless and ugly and showing your internal features. So just ask a question. It's not that difficult, and let's have an intellectual debate.